Rights to freedom is dead. We're coming to get our check.
Black First brothers and sisters, welcome to the Afro Elite YouTube channel. I am your host, Afro Elite. And before we get started, please make sure that you guys are subscribed by hitting that subscribe button and hitting the notification bell so you don't miss out on any future content. Also, hit that like button and share this on your various social media platforms or to a family or friend, because that helps the reach and it helps the growth of the channel. And for everything that you all do as far as watching, liking, commenting, sharing, subscribing, all of what you guys do to support this channel, I sincerely appreciate that and thank you very much. Now, we have recently a neo-Nazi standoff with the police in Chicago. Now, a lot of you guys probably have not heard of this story because it didn't go super viral. The mainstream media didn't really pick it up, didn't really broadcast it, because, you know, when situations like this and when they have a white individual who does something, if social media doesn't pick it up, they'll sweep the story under the rug. So that's why it's important for us to get these stories out, because you're really not going to hear it from them. It's going to be a blink and you'll miss it. They'll bring it up just to say they talked about it, but besides that, it won't be a day and night type of story. They're not going to do any deep dive unless the public knows, unless the public is curious about this story. So that's probably why a lot of you guys have not heard this story, even though it's happened a couple days ago. Everybody should have known this by now. A neo-Nazi standoff in Chicago. How can you have missed that unless the media is deliberately trying to sweep the story under the rug? That's why it's important for us to do this job and get the story out there. So I'm going to read an article kind of going into what happened in the situation as far as the standoff and who this person is. And there's going to be some interesting themes in this article that I want you guys to pay very, very close attention to. But let's get started. Humboldt Park residents say they reported swastika erratic behavior of man dead after police standoff, but no one was listening. Now, the subtitle says, the man who apparently took his own life inside the building in the 4100 block of West Chicago Avenue had been the subject of more than 40 calls of service since January 2022. A CPD source tells the Sun-Times. Now, everybody knows where this is going. Everybody knows where I'm going to go, okay, with this, because remember the situation with Jordan Neely, and he got lynched on the New York subway, and everybody was bringing up, oh, well, you know, let's look at his record. Let's look at his record. And he had mental health problems. He was homeless, and they looked through his record, stretching back his entire life. This man had the police called on him 40 times since last year, okay? Since last year. But we're going to get into it. Now, here's a picture of the man. This is a picture of the man with a gun in his hand. And this is before he was having the standoff with the police. It says, neighbors of a man involved in a standoff with Chicago police Friday after he had been brandishing a gun from the roof of a Humboldt Park building said that they have been trying to bring attention to the situation for more than a year. Okay, come on, this is proof with the Jordan Neely situation, but let me just read the article. The man who later took his own life inside the building in the 4100 block of West Chicago Avenue had been the subject of more than 40 calls for service since January 2022, a police department source told the Sun-Times. An autopsy revealed he died from a gunshot wound to the head, according to the Cook County Medical Examiner's Office. His death was ruled a suicide. Neighbors said they reported seeing a man sitting on a makeshift platform atop the building, possibly with a gun, and had displayed an illuminated board with a swastika painted on it. Officers responded shortly before 10 a.m. Friday to a report of a man with a gun on the roof, according to police, who said the man went inside and refused to come out. About 12 hours later, a SWAT team entered the building and found the man dead. The Sun-Times is not naming the man because he has not been identified by the medical examiner's office. Okay, that's what they're saying. Now, let's just put our tinfoil kufis on, our tinfoil do-rags and bonnets for the ladies and gentlemen out here. Who's to say that this man is not some way informed, he's not a part of some type of group or anything like that, and they're clearing up his background, whatever the case is? That's what happens a lot of times. Because if this person was black, how often do you think? Because when this a black person, who the few times we have, like when mass shooters are black, the very, 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 very few times, they instantly put the name out almost immediately before the situation is even resolved. The second any black person commits some type of crazy act, their name and their whole information, their whole life story is instantly put out and put on display. Okay? But that's not the case with this guy. All right, just keep that in mind. Farrah Walker, a member of the West Humboldt Park Community Coalition, said her group was first made aware of the swastika sign 2 months ago, but she said she had seen police activity at the building for more than a year. Okay, so something's not adding up. She saw a swastika that didn't raise the flag, and this was 2 months ago. So see, this is what happens. When they're white, they get the police be called on them. Now, you're not going to hear Ben Shapiro. You're not going to hear Steven Crowder. You're not going to hear these alt-right people. They're not going to, because when they're black, they'd be all like, oh, lock them up and throw away the key. The police can't do their job, and we need to take the cuffs off the police. And, when they see a crime, now the police feel scared to arrest somebody. The judges feel scared to persecute and to give them harsh sentences and all that stuff. But when they're white, just like this guy with a swastika and everything, and a neo-Nazi, just like this with this guy, they're not going to say that about him. Now, he had the police called on him over and over and over and over again in a very short amount of time. Okay, there was so many red flags. The police let him go time and time again. And he wound up having a damn standoff with the police. And you're not going to hear them say anything about let's be tough on crime and let the police do their jobs. You're not going to hear them say that. Now, it continues to say, Walker said she and others in the organization have reached out to the city and state leaders about the Nazi symbol, including hand-delivered letters to the office of Alderman Emma Matz, and this is the 37th Ward Alderman, the mayor and governor. Okay, so they telling everybody like, hey, guys, we kind of got a neo-Nazi problem, and the government is not doing nothing, all right? They're not doing anything. They're letting this person go. So when you guys hear these alt-right people talk about, oh, we got to be tough on crime, they're not going to say that about a damn neo-Nazi, but they would say that about a homeless man who has mental issues. Continuing, the group also made calls to 311 and the city's Department of Buildings, she said. A spokesperson for Mintz did not respond to a request for comment Saturday. Quote, nothing has been resolved in a year of this going on, Walker said, saying she has been concerned the person responsible for the signs could resort to violence, including an active shooter situation. See, this is the problem when they talk about, oh my God, the guns are a problem. We got to get rid of the assault rifles and we have to get rid of the guns. And why does anybody ever need an assault rifle anyway? It just doesn't make sense. The problem is not the guns. The problem is the fact that there are so many red flags with certain people, and people call the police. These people have records on them, almost all of them, 9 times out of 10, they all have some type of record. Everybody was talking about them. Everybody was warning people about them. The police department knew about the person and let him go. This person is a damn neo-Nazi who these people Walker kept calling about, kept sending letters to the mayor and the governor about, and they didn't do nothing. Now, if this person came up to be an active shooter, they'd be all like, oh my God, America has a mental health problem and we just got to really get rid of the guns. No, if the police would do something, they would do their job, okay, against the white citizens who are neo-Nazis, we wouldn't be having these problems, just like with the shooter in Texas, okay? And they found out that this man was a neo-Nazi. These police are looking to get little black kids smoking weed and all that. They're sitting up there falsely incarcerating black people, and they're ignoring the neo-Nazis. That's why we have this big epidemic of mass shooters. Aaron Eckdell, I believe that's how it's pronounced, Aaron Eckdell, a 10-year Humboldt Park resident who lives a few blocks away from where the standoff occurred, said she and many of her neighbors have reached out to police and MIT as the situation escalated. Eckdell said she had heard gunshots from inside the building at night and had seen the illuminated swastika being put up. She first noticed the scaffolding tower on top of the building 3 years ago, saying her husband had called it a hunter's nest and described it as very intimidating. That's very interesting. She wondered why city inspectors hadn't looked into the sculpture, which she said appeared to be haphazardly constructed, and why they apparently allowed it to remain. Now, with black people, you can't do anything, I'm telling you guys, you can't do anything without the city inspectors coming in saying, no, that's a violation. No, you can't do that. It can be your own property. No, you can't do that. That's a city violation. You're going to get fined. You better take that down. Now, imagine, man, come on. If this is not white supremacy, I don't know what is, okay? Because had this been a black person, immediately, you wouldn't even have had to have no damn Nazi symbol, okay? The second he started building that up, they would have been like, nah, that's a red flag. Why would you even put that there? Immediately, okay? Continuing, Eckdell said police had previously closed Chicago Avenue on several occasions due to activities at the building, including in April when she said a man was seen on the roof with a flamethrower, a quote flamethrower. Where did this man get a damn flamethrower from? See, this is probably why they don't want to say the name, because it's not like you can just, walk in Walmart and grab a flamethrower. That's not a possibility. So this man got a flamethrower, how did he get one? Is it like, is this man tied in with certain things? And I'm telling you guys, in almost 100% of the cases, when you see incidents like this man is tied into some type of group, some type of organization, in many cases, law enforcement, okay? Which is a lot of reasons why these people don't get arrested by law enforcement. It's a lot of cases why these people, law enforcement, turn a blind eye to situations like this, is because law enforcement knows about it, and this person might have been a former agent, an active agent, or related to law enforcement in some type of way. Eckdell offered that officials might not have understood or believed what she saw, but wondered if her concerns would have been ignored in a more affluent neighborhood. No, that's not the case. That's not the case. If he was black, their concerns would definitely be heard. I promise you, nobody calls police, especially a black man, nobody calls the police on a black man and the police ignore that call. I guarantee you, nobody ever calls the police on a black man and they're all like, well, there's nothing we can do. They don't ever do that. They do something. They find a way to do something. It don't matter what they have to do. They'll find a way. If it's a black man, they'll find a way to do something. It's a damn neo-Nazi. Well, he hasn't done anything yet. That's the game they play. Continuing, quote, our voices, and this is Eckdell saying this, our voices weren't being heard, Eckdell said. It didn't seem like Alderman Mitz cared. She didn't give any voice to let us know she's seeing us, knows what's going on, or is concerned. This was someone who was a ticking time bomb. Walker said she agreed. Quote, we don't want anything like this to happen again, she said. These types of things don't just occur out of nowhere. The community tried to talk to law enforcement, tried to talk to local officials about it, and no one was listening, end quote. Both said they believe the man was suffering from mental illness. Oh, okay, suffering from mental illness, and had hoped he would receive help. Now, the help that they give the mental ill when it comes to black people is Daniel Penny. They'll lynch a black person who has mental illness. Mental illness for black people is an excuse to lynch them. When it comes to mental illness for non-black, especially white folks, they be just like, oh, we just gotta leave him alone. And until he commits some act of mass violence, there's nothing we can do. Daniel Penny just said he was hungry and he got lynched. Continues to say, quote, "No one wanted this man to die," Walker said. A relative of the man said on Saturday that they had not been in contact with him for several years and declined to comment. I wonder why they hadn't been in contact with him. Is that because they knew he was a neo-Nazi? Like, what's the see, this is the thing. If this man was, let's just say, if this man was black, they would be all like, well, what does the family say? What did the family do about this situation? Did they know? They would be bringing everybody that this man ever met in his entire life in for questioning. Now, let's continue. A review of his social media accounts showed he had a history of making threats directed at government officials and had shared conspiracy theories. That's very interesting. In one Facebook post, he linked to a video that claimed to depict a fleet of UFOs from the Milky Way 27th Legion, from quote the Milky Way 27th Legion. Last week shared a picture of a mannequin hanging from a noose in what appears to be a law enforcement uniform with the caption, "This is for you, Chicago Police Department and Homeland Security." Now I wonder what color the mannequin was. Because when it comes to hanging people, we all know what that's about. But here's the thing. Now, Facebook, Instagram, all of that stuff, they monitor black people all the time. Black people get locked up from posting, doing stuff and all that stuff on Facebook all the time and Instagram all the time. They're constantly monitoring black people's social media. Okay, all your social media accounts. You do something on social media 10 years ago, anything you do, the government's able to pull it up on you. This man is making threats to local government officials. Black people get SWATs called on them and they don't be doing nothing. This man is making direct threats to government officials and everything, putting Chicago police in the news, threatening them, not doing nothing. Calling the neighborhood on him, and they not doing nothing. The complexion for the protection is what this is. Continuing. Court records showed he had been arrested on low-level drug charges decades ago, as well as some traffic offenses, but had no recent charges. Well, of course he had no recent charges, because every time people were calling the police on this guy, the police ignored it. They called the police 40 times since January 2022, okay? And the police didn't do anything. Oh, he had no recent charges. Yeah, because y'all just stopped picking him up. That's why. It continues to say, quote, "All of you and this organization against me will be executed," he wrote in a separate Facebook post as recently as Thursday. Now, this happened Friday. As recently as Thursday, which was the day before the incident occurred. And then he continues to say, quote, "Take that to the bank and take that to the grave." Oh, okay. And the police don't do nothing until it's a crazy standoff. Not only are they not reporting pretty much on his identity, they're keeping that a secret, despite the fact that they know him. Despite the fact that they know him, because the police, listen how I know they know him. They're saying he was arrested before. Pay attention. They're saying he was arrested before, okay, with drug charges, traffic charges, and the police were called on him 40 plus times within the span of a little bit over a year, okay? 40 plus times. So they all know him. The reporters know him. The police know him. This is the same thing they do with Daniel Penny. Okay, remember when Daniel Penny, when he lynched Jordan Neely and none of the news outlets released his name? for almost a whole week. None of them released his name. That's the same thing they're doing with this. So what they're trying to do now is they're when these racists, when these neo-Nazis, when they do their acts, none of the media is going to release the name until they can like clear the board of all the social media and everything like that. Now they're going to point out, oh, he was a conspiracy theorist. They got his social media. They don't got his name. They don't have his name, but they have his social media. That's very interesting. So they pointed out in his social media how he was a conspiracy theorist and all that stuff. Well, why don't they let that be out to the public? What about the anti-black racism in his social media? They're not going to say that. They're going to say something about the UFOs and the 27th Legion and the Milky Way or whatever the case, whatever they said, right? But they're not going to let everything out. Why won't they just say his name? If he was black, they would have been said his name. First off, if he was black, it wouldn't have never escalated to that degree ever. But if he was black, they would have been said his name. So you see the pattern with Daniel Penny. You see the pattern with this guy that they don't want to release his name. And now wait a couple weeks later, if they're even still talking about this story, then it's going to be like, oh, we found his name. And then when you look it up, it's going to show you nothing about him, about his history, about nothing like that. Now, another thing that's very interesting is when the alt-right was trying to victimize, or when the alt-right was trying to justify Jordan Neely's death, when they were trying to justify his death, his lynching, they were all like, well, he was arrested 42 times. That makes him a menace to society. Even though a solid majority, almost all of his arrests were, just small little misdemeanors that, it doesn't really matter or whatever the case. He had mental issues. He was homeless, all of that. And they said because of those arrests makes him deserving to be lynched on a subway, okay, by just some just random suspected white supremacists, right? Now, when they're white and they do stuff like this, when they get called and the police ignore it, you don't hear the same, oh my God, we got to take the handcuffs off the police. You only hear that we have to take the handcuffs off the police type of talk when it's done against black people. They own that, so that's a code word. That's like a dog whistle. Oh, the handcuffs are on the police. That means the police should be able to racially profile and lock black people up more than they are already doing, because they're already doing that everywhere. But they want them to do that more without it being a bad thing. They don't want racial profiling to be a bad thing. Now, when it comes to neo-Nazis who get calls on them dozens and dozens and dozens of times, you don't hear anybody saying, why don't we take the cuffs off the police? They're not able to do their job. If they would have been arrested him, there wouldn't have been a standoff. How could they not have seen the signs? The same type of arguments that they were using to justify Jordan Neely getting lynched, a homeless, hungry man getting lynched, they're not going to say that about this terrorist neo-Nazi. But family, let me know what you think in the comments section below. I want to know, what do you think about the Chicago neo-Nazi? What do you think about the argument that they try to use as far as the police gotta, be tough on crime and strict on crime, and this is the problem with America today, and that's only when they're talking about black people. When they're not talking about black people, then that's not really an issue. That's not really an issue then. So let me know what you guys think about that in the whole situation, and what do you think about the video in general in the comments section below. You can also be following me on my various social media pages, which is at Afro Elite on Instagram and then at the Afro Elite on Twitter. And with that being said, my brothers and sisters, be one salute to every single last one of you all. Thank you for watching, and you all have a good one.